Thank you very much. Good evening. Call to order March 12th Aviation Commission Advisory Commission meeting to order. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Lead us today, please.
Sure. Your hand over your heart. Repeat after me.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is just crazy. Just looking at this thing yesterday. We have a roll call for this evening.
Absolutely. Chair John Cornell,
Present.
Vice Chair Matthew Johnston,
Present.
Commissioner Clark,
Present.
Commissioner
Here.
Commissioner Steve Tannehill,
Here.
Commissioner Bruce Martin,
Here.
Commissioner Richard Wyek,
Here.
Commissioner Neil Sexton.
Here.
You have a quorum with 8 commissioners, and for the record, Commissioners Sean Colvin and Mark McCamish have been excused from this meeting.
Thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda for this evening we know about?
Chair, there are no changes to the agenda time.
All right, very good. Moves to the approval of the minutes from last month's meeting on, or excuse me, the January 8th. Is that right? Yeah, January 8th meeting. Yeah.
I'll move approval of the January 8th minutes.
I second.
And for the record, could the commissioner who made the second just announce the name?
I'm sorry,
please?
Steve Tannehill, move approval.
Thank you. And for the
Jerry Abrams.
Thank you. Okay, roll call on the minutes approval. Chair Cornell,
Approved, yes.
Vice Chair Johnston,
Yes.
Commissioner Kramer,
Yes.
Commissioner Abramson,
Yes.
Commissioner Tannehill,
Yes.
Commissioner Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Wyek,
Yes.
Commissioner Sexton.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimously 8-0.
We have any public comments this evening?
There is a announcement that I would like to read out to any members of the public that are participating over Zoom. To members of the public who wish to address the commission tonight with live public comments on any agenda item, please visit vcairports.org/meeting-calendar for participation instruction. Streaming links, meeting IDs, and passcodes. In-person speakers present will be called upon first, followed by remote participants. Speakers will be called to speak after the agenda item is presented. For in-person public comment, please fill out a speaker card and submit it to the secretary before the end of the public comment period. For our remote participants via Zoom or telephone, please accept the prompt to be promoted to speaker and unmute your mic when it is your turn to speak. Public comments by a member of the public at a single meeting are limited to 3 minutes per speaker per listed agenda item. The general public comment period on non-agenda items is limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Time allotment may be decreased by the chair depending on the number of speakers. Please use your allotted time accordingly. And at this time, we have no speaker cards and there is no one raising their hand on Zoom.
Okay, thank you. We can move to our first agenda item. The approval of an authorization for the Director of Airports or his designee to sign the proposed lease with Access Air LLC.
So Chair, just a reminder, these are the consent items. We have 2 tonight under consent. That would be, again, as you mentioned, the Access Air and also the 5-year capital improvement. Normally, with motion, you can accept these as is, as recommended, and move forward unless there's a request to pull one of those items.
Okay.
I would like to request that we remove them from consent and discuss them.
Both of them?
Both of them, yes, given the
Okay.
scope and scale and also the agenda we have tonight. I think there's capacity and they're significant enough. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Is there a second?
Gary Abrams, second.
Then we will go ahead and move on to our regular agenda items. And those items will be moved to, I'm sorry, consent items 6A and 6B will be moved to later in the meeting.
All right, so the first regular agenda item is to receive and file a service recognition award presentation to Mr. Steve Weiss for his years of service as Commissioner on the Aviation Advisory Commission.
I believe tonight with us, we have Supervisor Vianey Lopez that would like to say some comments before I do. Dave, if you can least promote her.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Thank you so much. And Keith, thank you for the opportunity to join virtually. I am sorry that I can't be there in person, but I wanted to join and take a moment just to express my appreciation to Mr. Weiss for his over 20 years or approximately 20 years serving on the Aviation Advisory Committee, and for a long commitment, interest in supporting our community, in Oxnard in particular, and serving in this capacity. I recognize as you're all sitting there during an evening, taking time out of your day, taking time out of many other commitments and life in general, to dedicate the time to serve our community. And so I just want to express my appreciation. Steve, thank you for being so willing to serve the 5th District in this capacity, and for continuing to serve in other capacities in our community. And while I can't be there in person, I do appreciate your service. And Amy Peak, my Chief of Staff, is there to present the certificate of recognition on my behalf. And just want to thank you for being a good member of our community and still being engaged and active in what is happening to our local communities, especially as it relates to the aviation community. So just want to thank you for your time. Thank you for your dedication, and we'll be seeing you. This won't be the end, but at least in this capacity, I can just express my appreciation.
Thank you.
All right, Steve, you got to sit down. I have some comments to harass you about first. So most of you probably don't know that as Supervisor Lopez talked about, a long history with the Department of Airports, actually more than 21 years after going through the records. So we too, from the AAC, Aviation Advisory Commission, and the Department of Airports, have a plaque of recognition as well for you. So thank you very much. We appreciate all that you've done. And I want to end by saying that, Steve probably doesn't remember, but particularly during COVID, he was a little sassy at times about certain items. So he kept us on our toes. So we appreciate that. Thank you, sir. All right, sir. The floor is yours.
Well, I must say it's been an honor and a privilege to serve on the advisory commission. And I've seen, I think everyone here came after me. And it's some of the hurdles, one of the big hurdles we did was the lease with the 2 airports, the hangar leases that was quite an ordeal. And I think the commission really stepped forward and was helpful in having that come to fruition. And it was a lot of give and take. So I was very proud of that accomplishment. One of my visions from the time I began serving was having commercial flights going out of Oxnard. And I know it's been quite a while and many here believe that it's never going to happen again. And my vision is to see commercial flights operating out of Oxnard once again. I mean, we are the largest county airport in the country without commercial flights. And whether it be air taxis or something, but to take all these vehicles off the road that are either going to Santa Barbara Airport or Burbank Airport or LAX, and the pollution that causes, because I hear the other side, well, if we have air traffic out of Oxnard, it's going to contribute to pollution, et cetera. So let's fill our toolboxes and get some commercial flights back in Oxnard. And on that note, thank you very much for honoring me and allowing me to speak. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Steve. All right, second item on the agenda to receive and file a monthly staff update from Communications and Engagement.
Oh,
Manager.
sorry, Jeanette, if I can make an announcement, Chair Cornell, after consulting with staff, if we can move to one of the pulled consent agenda items, item 6B, if we may, our staff is ready to present on that item.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Susan Beck. I am the Facilities Project Specialist here, and I'm here to answer your questions in regards to item 60.
So let me give a little background since the item was pulled. So the background is capital improvement projects list that you see. It's the same list you see every year from us. FAA requires that we provide a 5-year capital list for both airports. And these are all the infrastructure, not hangar developments, not private developments. These are just the projects that we have that we would likely request funding over the next 5 years for each of the airports. So that's what you see in front of you. You'll see it every year. We're required to update it. Again, because it's an on-running list of items, you really don't see much changes. It's just a running list. And that's it. Again, if there's specific questions, Sujin here to answer them. So great.
Thank you.
It was great to see. I see the hangar at Oxnard is in the 5-year plan. That's wonderful to see that. I did notice, if I remember correctly, there was land acquisition in at both of the airports. And I was curious, I wasn't aware of land acquisition that was on our radar screen. Can you
So
give some color on that, please?
Sure. The land acquisition is only for the Oxnard Airport area. It's estimated for the year 2030, and it is in the RPZ zone. The land that is being acquired, looking into being acquired. The land currently is owned by Oxnard High School District, and they are looking for the Department of Airports to acquire that land.
And is that land adjacent to the airport then, right now?
It's in the runway protective zone area.
Thank you very much.
We have any other questions regarding this item? Nope. That's it.
Okay.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Not a problem.
Now we'll move
Make a
to,
motion for this.
And for the record, there are no public comments on this item.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the approval of the 5-year capital improvement plan.
Oh, yeah, because it's a,
Yeah.
announced regular item. Yep, thank you very much. We have a motion to approve the capital plan.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you have a second?
Bruce Martin, I'll second the motion.
Great.
Okay, this is ready for a roll call vote. The Chair Cornell,
Yes.
Vice Chair Johnston,
Yes.
Commissioner Kramer,
Yes.
Commissioner Abramson,
Yes.
Commissioner Tannehill,
Yes.
Commissioner Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Wyatt,
Yes.
Commissioner Sexton.
Yes.
Item 6B passes unanimously 8-0.
Now,
All right, now it's my turn.
Yep.
With a much taller podium. Okay. Good evening to you all. My name is Jeanette Haregi. I'm the Communications and Engagement Manager and Public Information Officer for the Ventura County Department of Airports. I am pleased to be here this evening to present our 13th feature in our series Spotlight on Local Aviation. These stories highlight unknowns of airports, the behind-the-scenes work made possible by the day-to-day operations of Camarillo Airport and Oxnard Airport, work that makes a profound different impact on the communities we serve. Tonight's story focuses on the Ventura County Fire Department's most recent efforts tackling wildfires across the region. January 7th, 2025, a fire breaks out in Pacific Palisades. It was the start of the third time in 60 days that Camarillo and Oxnard airports had been utilized as support for regional firefighting efforts. Ventura County Fire Department initially deployed approximately 70 personnel to fight the blaze as the battle became not just about the fire, but also about the winds. In the coming days, a total of approximately 33 helicopters found a temporary home at Camarillo Airport as they flew operation after operation over Pacific Palisades in Malibu. Less than 2 months before, the mountain fire was literally in Camarillo Airport's backyard. The Ventura County Aviation Unit, comprised of a partnership between Ventura County Fire Department and the Ventura County Sheriff's Office, immediately activated. And though the winds were very high, they were still able to get into the air and immediately combat the fire. Ventura County Fire Battalion Chief Nick Cleary said that having the airports in such close proximity was a game changer. Within the first 48 hours, the fire was at 14% containment, which was a huge feat given the winds and destruction of the fire. For the week that followed, Camarillo and Oxnard airports welcomed 28 firefighting aircraft from throughout the state, while Camarillo Airport completely closed down to focus solely on ensuring that airspace and runway use was available to all firefighting crews. In the meantime, a smaller fire broke out in Malibu, and crews operating out of Camarillo were able to quickly tackle that fire, again because of the close proximity. But conditions weren't as cooperative as Los Angeles County faced the largest and most destructive fires in the region's history. The wind events the week of the Palisades fire broke out. The wind events the week of the Palisades fire broke out were unprecedented. Unlike the mountain fire, helicopters weren't unable to immediately fly. Still, both Camarillo and Oxnard airports became a hub for firefighting operations for all fires in the Los Angeles area, and once it became safe enough to fly, crews were in the air and over the fires within minutes. Firefighting aircraft from throughout the region, including Utah and Arizona, were welcomed at Camarillo Airport to help combat the 14 wildfires in Los Angeles area. In all, more than 50,000 acres were burned and over 15,000 structures were destroyed. The Palisades fire alone burned more than 23,000 acres and became one of the deadliest fires in California history. The statistics tell one story, the human experiences tell another. Stories like the couple whose dream it was to raise their children in Pacific Palisades as they also opened and operated their business down the street. Both their home and their place of work were destroyed. And then there was a family-owned feed store that became a staple in Malibu, a small remnant of days gone by. That was lost along with the oceanfront houses across the street that were featured in countless movies, television shows, and commercials as everybody's California dream. The fires didn't discriminate as people from all walks of life faced evacuations, many returning to only ashes and an unrecognizable shadow of haze in the otherwise sunny blue skies of the California coast. We all watched it unfold, especially those with a front row seat to the continuous action at Camarillo Airport. And as surreal and devastating as it was, it's impossible to imagine what could have been without the heroic efforts of our firefighters, both on the ground and in the air. To say that regional airports play a critical role in these events is an understatement. There simply aren't any words to fully describe the difference airports make in providing life-saving services, not just for fires, but also for medical emergencies, organ transplants, swift water rescues, mountain rescues, and more. The airports serve as a base, a place of operation, that make it possible for emergency personnel to be there fast, just when residents need them most. And during the Palisades fire, and the mountain fire, we had several media requests, but particularly during the Palisades fire, just because of the high profile location. And one of those media requests, several were in writing. We had KUIT come out to Camarillo Airport, and they had on their morning news, the story ran, I think, 5 times total, starting at 6 a.m. And we're going to show you a video of that coverage.
As firefighters continue to work around the clock across Southern California, the Camarillo Airport is now playing a vital role by hosting firefighting aircraft.
News Channel reporter Ivania Montes is live at the Camarillo Airport. Ivania, good morning. It sounds like even more aircrafts are expected to arrive to support the firefighting efforts.
Yeah, that's right, Chris, especially with these new fires also that came in last night unexpectedly. These fire crews are stationing right here. I'm going to take a step so you guys can see a little bit of the action that is happening. A lot of them, of course, getting rest, but then also some being able to work overnight here at the Camarillo Airport, doing more of the maintenance work before these aircrafts are set to fly up to the fires that are happening in Southern California. Now, fire crews from near and far are joining forces to support the firefighting efforts with the Camarillo Airport, providing crucial space for their operations. The airport's strategic location, close to multiple fires across Southern California, enables crews to reach the scenes within minutes, maximizing their response time. And this is the 3rd time in the past 60 days that the Camarillo Airport has served as a hub for regional firefighting operations. At the end of last year, the airport also played a crucial role in supporting efforts during the mountain fire and the first Malibu fire.
Despite the winds, they were able to fly immediately and for the first 48 hours. And that made all the difference in combating that fire. And he said it was a game changer to be able to have the regional airports so close in proximity. The level of intensity of the winds for this fire is unprecedented, as everybody has said. And it's made it difficult and impossible, especially when the fire first broke out.
So far, there have been no interruption to the airport's operations. Ventura County Aviation Unit, which is based here in Camarillo Airport, is among those helicopters here contributing to the fire. And if we are able to come out here back live behind the airport where the mountains are, that's where you can still see some of that smog, the fog, excuse me, and some of the smoke that is still happening from the fires. But if we come back out here at the Camarillo Airport, again, they're stationed out here getting ready, have been going up and down, heading out to the fires all night long. And right now, crews are starting to wake up to continue with these fires. And when we arrived, winds were still super strong, super intense as we arrived. They seem to have mellowed out as of right now. But of course, we're going to stay on alert for these high winds. We're now live out here in Camarillo. I'm News Channel reporter Ivania Montes. Krista Joey, sending it back to you.
And that's this month's presentation. Thank you all.
Thank you.
And Chair Cornell, for the record, there are no public comments on this item.
Thank you very much. Next item,
As firefighters,
approval of the Department of Airports fiscal year 25-26 rent and fee schedule.
Good evening, Chair Corneau and commission members. And many of you are new faces to me. I'm Madeline Hurley. I'm the lease manager for the Department of Airports. It's my pleasure to present the rent and fee. It's our annual presentation of changes to or proposed changes to any rates, policies, permit fees, insurance requirements. Sometimes it's as simple as correcting a typo, and sometimes there's significant changes. This year, can I get the slide up with the schedule of changes. This year, if you've gone through you were provided a red line of the thick tome that is our rent and fee, which shows where the changes were made. There's a cheat sheet at the front of the document that is, it's an Excel spreadsheet that shows you a detail of what the summary of the rent and fee changes are with the highlights in yellow of what's changed. So I can just review those with you real briefly. This is the insurance slide. Denise, can I get the regular one? Yeah, thanks. First page. Nope, first page. What you're looking at right now, you haven't seen. This is a schedule of a survey that we did of other airports for insurance rates. We canvassed Santa Monica, Burbank, LA County airports, Van Nuys, Santa Barbara, San Luis Obispo. We'll get to that in a minute. Before the insurance slide. So there was the proposed changes for the rent and fee, so just the insurance portion. It's okay, I'll go through. The big change is no change to the hangar and tie down rates. That's what everyone wants to know. We did have a change to the utility charges for the private hangars, the general aviation hangars. We charge if they're provided with power, and most of them are. We charge a monthly utility fee, which pays the cost for their power, just electricity at this point. It has been $11 a month for 3 years. And this year it'll be going up July 1st to $15 a month. So this goes to all of the hangar tenants that are in private and county hangars that have
It's
power.
county hangars also, right?
Yes, correct. The GA ones. So over the 3 years, the way we conduct the analysis of utility rate changes, we do a look back to understand if there's been an increase in cost and an increase in usage. So over the last 3 years, we've had a 20% increase in cost. That's what the utilities charge us. And a 16.4% increase in usage. So that really reflects activities inside the hangars. If people are using their hangars to run compressors or trickle chargers or heaters, small units, fans, those kinds of things. So if they have refrigerators, obviously the usage goes up. We are waiving again this year any flowage or storage fees for unleaded fuel. It's to encourage people to start to use unleaded fuels. And one of the concepts that we also have is setting forth what the required investment for long-term leases is at either Oxnard or Camarillo Airport. There's a capital requirement for long-term leases that relates to the term of the lease requested and how many acres the development site may encompass. So in the past, the airports have been combined in terms of their requirements, and this year we're splitting that in the recognition of the activity at the airport and the available space. So Oxnard rate is $10,000 investment per acre per lease year requested. Camarillo is $20,000, which is what it's been for quite a while. So that reflects a different change, and this is the change that you'll see in the rent and fee. We have some change to the commercial daily activity permits, which really is just a reflection. That's a labor rate cost recovery. So that just reflects a change in labor rate for the folks, the operations staff that usually oversees that process. So that changes from $199 a day to $245 a day. When we did the private hangar leases that Mr. Weiss referred to earlier, there was a transfer fee for leases, long-term leases of 2% of the value of the transaction. So that's been waived for 3 years as we went through the process of converting the private hangar leases from a month-to-month lease to a long-term 20-year lease. And this year that will expire. So the 2% fee will come into play as of July 1st. So if people are thinking of selling their hangars, they might want to do it before July 1st. Staff rates, we just generally reflect if people come in for consultation, or operations, staff that they need for special events or things like that. We publish the rates of those, personnel, and so they're adjusted every year. We have a payment portal that we've been using, for the last, has it been 18, 2 years? About 2 years, right? And we, initially, in order to encourage people to use the payment portal to pay their rents, we waived the credit card fees and transaction fees for that process. We did get some feedback and pushback from county, because it wasn't consistent with the other agencies and what they're doing. So that will be implemented as of July 1st. And that's consistent with the county policy of the other agencies. This one's an interesting one. We, are standing up an advanced air mobility area. It's called Area 805, for test range, process at Oxnard Airport. Keith has been instrumental in development of that site, and this is an adjustment to a daily fee from $250 a day to $1,500 a day, or $6,000 a week. And we anticipate a lot of activity for new types of aircraft using Oxnard. Another section in the rent and fee is the insurance section. So as I mentioned before, we had canvassed a number of airports to see what the trends are in our local area for what those minimum requirements for levels of insurance are. And we asked our risk management folks at the headquarters building to analyze our current policy and requirements to see if they're keeping pace with the industry and the county's requirements. So we had a complete review by county risk. And by canvassing the other airports, we have made some adjustments to those levels of coverage. Let's see, and that's it for the rent and fee. Are there any questions?
Commission members, any questions?
A quick comment. It's wonderful to see the unleaded incentive continue. And this may not be the forum because we're talking about fees, but I'd be curious to know how much success we're having with that and what percent of the fuel we're selling is unleaded, what percent is leaded. And if you don't have that with you tonight, understandable, maybe the next meeting, or if you have it tonight, that'd be great. Thank you.
Last time we looked, which was a couple of months ago, it's 1% of our leaded fuel sales at this point. A lot of work to be had in that area.
Want me to speak to that a little bit?
Probably should be an agenda item if that down the road, but
We're talking. Yeah, so about 1% of the fuel we're selling is, so even though we offer that, it's not having
Where's,
the desired
there's
effect.
still some hurdles operationally.
where's it offered?
Oxnard Airport is, Golden West is currently selling.
Oh, Golden West. Okay. Over in Oxnard.
Channel Islands has some as well. at
Oh, they do.
Camarillo.
Okay. I had no idea they didn't, were doing that.
Yes,
And what type of unleaded is it? What?
I believe they're both doing the Swift fuel at this point.
Swift fuel?
Yeah,
Okay.
the 94.
I know we're going a little sideways, but we don't offer the GAMI 100.
We do not.
Would
Again,
that
not
maybe make a
we.
difference if we offered GAMI 100 to the pilots?
At this point, given legal action that just happened yesterday, I'm guessing not.
What happened yesterday?
No, that should be an agenda item.
Yeah,
We're
well-
way off on the agenda
Yeah.
item at this point. If you want to have that discussion, we probably should agendize it for a future meeting would be my recommendation.
And here I thought it was just a little comment.
Yeah.
And see
Thank
what
you.
you did.
Thank you, Keith.
And Chair
Do-
Corno, for the record, there's no public comment on this item.
Thank you very much. For the recommendations, we go to the supervisors and request approval of this agenda item. You can do that via email or phone call to your supervisor.
I'll move approval.
Approved, but I was just wondering, is this something that the courts just decided yesterday, you said?
We should probably
Well-
agendize that item. There was a court
thought we
decision,
took
which
the
you all
vote.
can look up, regarding GAMI fuel. I think it was yesterday or the day before.
So it should be in the news, in other words.
Correct. It is for
Thank you
sure
for that.
online. Yes. So
Yes, we're just
So-
waiting a second
thank you.
to Commissioner Tannehill's motion.
Second, yep.
This is Bruce Martin. I'll second the motion.
Thank you very much. We're ready for a roll call vote.
Yep.
Chair Cornell,
Yes.
Vice Chair Johnston.
And this is for the rent and fee schedule.
That is correct.
I'm going to abstain.
Thank you. Commissioner Kramer,
Yes.
Commissioner Abramson,
Yes.
Commissioner Tannehill,
Yes.
Commissioner Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Wyack,
Yes.
Commissioner Sexton.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimously 7-0 with one abstention by Commissioner Johnston. And Chair Cornell, for the record, the next item, if you'll indulge us, if we can hear consent agenda item 6A, with the presenter being Madeline Hurley.
Very well.
we can
Chair,
tag
I'm going to
team that for sure.
recuse myself from this, so I'm going to head out to the audience.
Yep, sounds good. Thank you.
Good evening. So this item pertains to a proposed lease with Access Air LLC for a 5.17 acre site. It's the current Golden West FBO location with a few more acres added out to extend that leasehold to the edge of the roadway on the flight line. This lease is a 35-year lease. Access Air is a LLC that's comprised of Matt Johnston and his California Aeronautical University business. He's interested in expanding his business there as well as operating the FBO. So I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you. I do have a couple questions. And I want to make sure everybody else has a chance too. So if I'm going to say something and if anybody has something else, anyway. So one question I have, and I actually got a preview of this before the meeting, but anyway, we have some buildings that are in terrible repair at Oxnard. In particular, the Quonset hut shaped building that's right next to the current FBO.
Mhm.
Is that part of this process? It will
No.
not be?
No, this is part of the hangar 1 and hangar 2 and hangar 3. Those are the older hangars on the flight line. Those are part of the 7-acre site that's being developed by
Okay.
Urban Air Mobility
Okay,
or
thank you. Well,
and that lease will come before you in the next meeting.
in my tradition, I guess, tonight of bringing up things that are peripheral, that building is in terrible shape and it would be wonderful to see that building either fixed or raised. You can literally see inside of it. Okay, thank you for that. And then my only question is on the lease term.
Mhm.
I see we have a 35-year
Mhm.
term lease. Is that normal for this? I would be thinking maybe more 10 or 15 with renewals if both parties are interested.
So when there's a required capital investment, most investors want to see the return on their investment over at least a 20-year term. Longer, it depends on their business plan and outlook. And then if we can coordinate that or collate that with our investment requirement, for us, it means a significant investment in the infrastructure at the airport that provides FBO services in this case, which is vitally important there. So those are negotiated. So, sure.
Second. Yeah, one of the key things on that point is, again, this is, as Madeline talked about, a fixed base operator, an FBO, which is a key difference for things like Camarillo, we've talked about Cloud9 and other storage facilities where they're just renting two individuals to store their aircraft. It's a simple transaction. That's all they do. With a fixed base operator, particularly in this facility, the only one that really does that in great depth at Oxnard, there's all these services that they have to provide, fueling and maintenance and flight. So it's not just hey, you get this property, but by the way, this airport needs all of these services, which cost them money, go to the bottom line. So it's not only the capital investment, but it's all the services that we need. So it is a give and take and that level, not compared to just renting hangar space.
So is this operation going to be that in sense, meaning maintenance and fuel and
It is going to be run as a fixed base operator, and specifically part of our RFP that we issued almost a year ago, I think it was, is what's the connection to the community? Community programs and all those things were listed in that. What are you going to do to help us tie the airport to the community? So it was those kind of things that we looked at. And this entity, CAU, was partnering and proposing to partner with us to do those kinds of things, which are important to us in the community.
Any other questions? We have any public comment on this item?
There are no public comments on this item.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
And this item will need a vote, a motion
Yeah.
and a second.
Yep, thanks. Yeah, so we're gonna recommend to the supervisors, this moves forward. We have a motion. for this
yeah,
item?
I'll make that motion.
Jerry,
Jerry,
make that
Jerry,
item. And a second? I can second it, John Cornell.
Okay, and for the record, Commissioner Johnston has recused himself from this item and he is not in the room at the time of the vote. Chair Cornell,
Yes?
Commissioner Kramer,
Yes.
Commissioner Abramson,
Yes.
Commissioner Tannehill,
Yes.
Commissioner Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Wyatt,
Yes.
Commissioner Sexton.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimously 7-0 with a recusal from Commissioner Johnston.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Gonna rejoin us?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah. I did realize that.
Yeah, that's why
This is like the first one going.
he does. Oh, you're okay. No, you're okay. I talked about it. Yeah, you're fine. Skydiving.
So the next item, I'll give an introduction. Our Deputy Director, Casey Pullman, is going to give this report, but I want to give a little bit of background as a reminder. Several months ago, we talked about interest from a company who's been operating out of Camarillo Airport, but doing skydiving landing zone off the airport. They came to us a couple of years ago, wanted to do a location on one of the two airports. So we started and looked at Oxnard Airport. A reminder is this is not our discretion because it is a recognized aeronautical use that we can't just as the airport say, no, we don't want skydiving at our airports. We have to allow it unless there was some unique safety issue. So Casey's going to kind of talk about all the testing and process that we did over the last month or so.
Good evening, Casey Pullman, Deputy Director of Operations and Maintenance. And I was going to provide you, because all the new faces, I was going to provide you some background, but Keith took care of that for me. So following our November 24th report on the proposed skydiving operations at Oxnard Airport, the Department of Airports has completed the planned test period for Skydive Coastal. This update provides a summary of the test operations, challenges encountered, solutions implemented, and the current status of it. The test operations commenced on February 18th, 2025, so just a month ago, with Skydive Coastal, an experienced operator with over 16 years at Camarillo Airport. The testing focused on operational safety, air traffic coordination, and community impact assessment. During the first 2 days of testing, we encountered unanticipated noise concerns from community members. The initial landing zone in the northwest corner of the airport, could we get that map? So there's Oxnard Airport. So the initial landing zone was located in the northwest corner there. It prompted ATCT, the tower, to implement a left-hand or southern traffic pattern, but only during the actual jump operations, which occurred just a few times a day. However, even this limited change in traffic pattern increased flights over residential neighborhoods during those specific periods. And that was a decision that the tower made that within a couple of days was corrected. They didn't necessarily have to do that, but they did. Working collaboratively with the tower and Skydive Coastal, we quickly addressed these concerns by restoring the right-hand or northern traffic patterns by day 2 of the operations, identifying a new landing zone in the southwest corner of the airport, which you can see there on the southern edge of the property, and implementing revised coordination procedures between the tower and the Skydive operations. As part of our comprehensive evaluation process, a representative from the FAA Flight Safety District Office, or FSDO, conducted an on-site assessment, observing multiple skydiving operations. Following their professional evaluation, the operations were determined to meet all safety standards and protocols required for this aeronautical activity at Oxnard. So he spent a day out, reviewed, looked at all the jumps that they had done that day and deemed it to be a safe operation. The current status is operations have been independently verified and safe by FAA. The new landing zone in the southwest corner at the time of me drawing up this presentation, it was being finalized, but it has been finalized. So they are now using that. And the right-hand or northern traffic pattern maintains our commitment to fly-friendly protocols. So they are back permanently with the northern or right-hand traffic pattern. While the initial test period has concluded successfully, the airports view safety validation as a continuous process. We will conduct periodic operational assessments as a method to monitor protocol and evaluate these operations on an ongoing basis. This adaptive approach allows us to promptly identify any emerging concerns and implement appropriate adjustments if necessary. Now, the path going forward is the Department of Airports will maintain vigilant oversight of the skydiving operations to ensure they remain safe and compatible with our noise mitigation efforts, which is incredibly important to the airports. We are committed to maintaining open communication with all stakeholders, which we believe that we have done very well, as this new aeronautical activity fully integrates into regular operations at Oxnard. Are there any questions for me?
How does ATC now, do they still have the takeoffs and landings during operations, or what do they do? I mean, do they still have planes taking off during the jumps, or?
That's a coordination with the tower. I'm not exactly sure how they play that out, but we know that everybody is in complete communication before they jump. The tower announces that there's going to be parachuters in the area, skydivers in the area. And so really it's just kind of a, everybody working together to ensure the highest safety
But they're
standards.
still having the aircraft operations also.
Aircraft
during the same
operations,
time?
yes, and how they determine, the tower determines, if an aircraft is landing or taking off, they have to make that determination based on the location of the skydivers and the proximity, the altitude that they're at. So there's a lot of different variables that go into that. But again, they're making, everybody's communicating to make it as safe as possible.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chair, I have a question. Regarding the vehicle traffic, there's a lot of vehicle traffic that comes in through that gate there. I know the radio communication through anyone that's flying or, in aircraft is aware of that activity. But how are the vehicles that are coming into that gate knowing that that activity is taking place? Because the landing zone, now that it's moved to the other side, is adjacent to what I perceive to be, it could be inactive. There's traffic coming in and out of that gate frequently.
Visually, they're going to have to make that determination to proceed or not, but it might be behoove of us to put out a notification to the Oxnard stakeholders and just bring in more awareness that, when entering the gate or leaving the gate, that there might be skydiving operations in that area.
Or is there a way that the skydiving operation can, do some kind of post down there so that as the drivers come in, there's some kind of, skydiving in progress, or, like we hear in the aircraft, we get notification. Is there maybe something, because that gate is so adjacent to that landing zone, and I'm assuming winds or different things that may make the landing not so accurate, right? You don't want somebody driving through there. So maybe there's some mitigations that we can do to notify some of the drivers. I don't know.
No, those are great questions to bring up. And again, we're trying to make this as safe as operation as possible. So we will definitely be looking into that and potentially implementing other installing some signs or whatever, but we will be looking into that. Thank you for bringing that up.
And this is all tandem jumping?
This is 100% tandem jumping. There's no individual jumpers, and every jumper in this operation with Skydive Coastal has over 3,000 or 5,000? 5,000. 15. Yeah, so they're extremely experienced.
And they're currently operating out of the Golden West facility. Is that?
That's
the
where
only
they,
place they're operating out of?
that's correct. That's where they take, yeah, that's where they meet. That's where they prepare themselves and then depart from, currently there.
Great. We have any other commission questions? Commission? Nope. Looks like we have a speaker card tonight. Sorry, is that Barb?
Barb Filkins, yes,
Thank you very much. Good evening, Barb.
I just wanted to back up a little bit. I was involved with the initial coordination with the tower in those drop zone. Kind of.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I'm just requesting a quick pause for a technical issue. Just one moment, please. The technical issue is the timer, and we apologize. Ms. Filkins, we are ready, and again, our apologies. You may begin.
Okay. I was informally asked to help with tower coordination and drop zone coordination, being a stakeholder and an active pilot at Oxnard. First time around, you heard what Casey said about the noise problems. And so they moved the drop zone to the south side. And as part of a kind of a follow-on, I said that I would be willing to do a little bit of filming at the time that they were actually actively dropping to see what the impact might be as far as pattern and flight. I do have the footage, not tonight because you guys are in a different position, but we could do it next month. And effectively what we did, the worst time that something could happen would be, let's say an aircraft is departing while the jumpers are down within that same altitude that you would be on departure. So what we did is we held at the bottom when the tower saw them at 1,000 feet, got cleared for takeoff. And we did have coincident, we're basically at the same altitude as when the jumpers were down on our takeoff path. The first time through was a little bit unsettling because they look bigger than they do on the video. But a couple things to note. They tend to be very accurate on the drop zone, even with wind. They do have limitations on the wind as far as both sustained wind and gust factor. And so each time we went doing a right-hand pattern with them basically on our left-hand side as we were taking off, there were very little issues. There was, I would say, safe separation. And the drop zone is further from the runway on the south side than it is on the north side. So just FYI. And I haven't seen anything on the traffic map that you brought in. I do come in through the west gate, but that I think we do need to work out. Okay.
Thank you.
Did I ask where the drop zone for the aircraft is? Where do they actually jump from? What area?
Yeah, to the west a little bit. I think it just depends on what the winds are doing, but I've seen them just to the west, and I've seen them drop them way far off to the west, and somehow they make it there. So they know the winds better than anybody, and it's sometimes it's just amazing. And then they are able to land, I mean, just pinpoint accuracy, and that's what I experienced. So again, this is an ongoing evaluation process, and we are always going to be just continuing to compound on safety measures.
What I'll add to that is, they climb up to altitude. So at this point, it's somewhere between 8 and 10,000. Free fall and pull shoots between 5 and 4,000 feet and then descend down. But we were there for the first days of jumping, and it literally, they're coming down in a column like an elevator, setting down, and then the final kind of a small base to final landing within like 100 feet. Amazing what they do.
Just one other item I just want to bring up is that they normally don't, when they're coming down, they stay off of airport property for the most part until at the very last part. So, and when they had the north landing zone, they were over the fields all the way until like the last minute, then they came in. The same thing here, they're staying south of the airport property, and then at the last minute, they're coming in and making that landing zone.
Thank you. And the director's report, that's it for comments. Thank you very much. Director's report this evening.
Okay, I'll finish it up. Just a few items I wanted to report out. Wings over Camarillo parking issue. So as you know, for 40 plus years, Wings over Camarillo Air Show has gone on at Camarillo Airport. We're running into an issue over the last few years as we develop, particularly in the business park, those parcels of land running out of those open spaces to park. So we're continuing to work with the Wings over Camarillo folks, because ultimately those properties will be developed and, the bare acres of land will go away. So we're working with them long-term, trying to figure out what they do with that. So that's an ongoing issue for us and them. A big item. Several months ago last year, we signed a contract with a company that you're familiar with, Kaufman, and they partner with a company called Lean to do the approach analysis at Camarillo Airport. Again, this has to do with findings out of our noise study, particularly the one at Camarillo. 90+% of our noise comments come from Old Town Camarillo, and that has to do with jets on arrival and final approach into Camarillo Airport. So we contracted with these consulting firm to help us analyze the approach options we have. So Kaufman Lean was the entity. We had a presentation with this commission in January with their prime lead person. His name is Paul Hanna, that kind of gave an update, what we're looking at. And then we were kind of moving with them to do the next steps, and we didn't hear from them for an extended period of time. We're sad to report that the prime, Paul Hanna for the company, and his number two left the company to go start their own nonprofit. So not even in the same business. So that led to some concerns, obviously, with airport team, because a whole new team coming in place, and they didn't have for months anybody in place. So what we did was, in the last couple of weeks, we reconvened the selection committee, which was made up one airport staff member, and then we had Barb Filkins, the air traffic manager for Oxnard Airport. We had a local based corporate pilot, and then one community member, 5 members that re-interviewed the new leadership at Lean, and then the number 2 company that we did interviews with, they did interviews with about a year ago. Needless to say, and I'm sad to say, that Lean did not come out with great reviews after that second round of interview. Their new team trying to figure out all these things. So the committee unanimously decided to move to that second company, knowing it'll take us a couple months, 2 to 3 months, to go through a contracting process, develop a scope, get it approved through this group, through the airport authority, and onto the board. But they all understood that staying with Lean and a new team that had to figure out from basically ground zero all over again wasn't the better option. So that's kind of where we're headed with that. Again, we have confidence in the new team. Again, they were pretty close in the initial selection, but with the changes, they kind of stood above everybody else. So we're heading in that direction. Little pause, and then we're going to head, 2-3 month pause, and then heading on that important item. Just a side note, we had the grand jury do a protocol visit. They've done this. They did it 2 years ago. New grand jury like to see all the different departments in the airport, in the county. And so they came out for an overview of what's happening at the airports and a tour. Very excited. They were very pleased with what they had seen and very interested in what was going on. The last item, I just some questions that have come up over the last month or so. What's happening with the federal layoffs and things like that? Does any of that affect R2 Tower? So again, Camarillo Airport is a federal FAA tower. No changes in their staff at this point. We have a contract tower at Oxnard Airport. No changes with them. I think I recently reported that the contract for the contract tower at Oxnard went through a change. It was Serco and Robinson took over. They basically offered new letters of offer for each of the employees that were there with Serco. They're now Robinson employees as of about a month ago. So no changes there. E-chargers, we're still looking to do a ribbon cutting for those at Oxnard Airport. I think the target date at this point is April. It's kind of a part of the county downtown that's leading that charge. And last question was the YARF trucks and the cleaning for the AFFF that has PFAS in them. We're still in process, working with a company to get that cleaning done. The trucks are operational. Obviously, if we had a fire and a discharge, and we'd have cleanup issues, but at this point, that hasn't been completed yet. But hopefully and expected in the next, I think our target is next 3 months. So that's what I had. Questions and anything else that I might clarify?
Well, they did when you on the noise complaint, the total number of households, is that actually from one household?
So if you look at the noise reports, you'll see, and that's the breakdown. When we have number of complaints per household, that's what that breakdown is.
You actually keep track of who's calling it.
Correct.
So it's just one household.
Yes. Well, we did that because it's an important message. If you had 1,000 noise complaints a month and 999 came from one household and you had one other, that sends a different message than, 100 different households calling, right? So that was the reason for that breakdown.
This comes up all the time, and I always feel compelled to mention that if you look at what Kaufman says about that, it's not uncommon to have that phenomena, and you shouldn't interpret it as that there's only 3 households complaining. It's kind of a canary in the coal mine type of phenomena. And Kaufman, who does this for a living, will say, understand that it's very easy to say, oh, it's just one person, but it's indicative of what the community is experiencing. But more importantly, I want to say 51 noise complaints from Oxnard in January is phenomenally good, a huge improvement. So kudos to everybody for making that happen. And then you mentioned the PFAS and the ARF truck. And again, for everybody, just for context, right? We have this particular truck at Oxnard, which we do not have at Camarillo. We have it at Oxnard because we keep our certification to allow scheduled passenger service, which has not happened for 15 years. So Mr. Weiss, he had it for 5, we've talked about this before. It's talked about it for years that the industry appears to have changed. They don't fly turboprops anymore. They consolidate. And I know Dave and others have tried and gone to conferences to try to bring back passenger service, scheduled service to Oxnard. It hasn't happened. my house, I could see the auto fire from my house. And actually the airport was between me and the auto fire. And I thought, wow, that's good. I got an ARF truck there to protect this community, realizing though that if the ARF truck was used, you'd have PFAS pollution all throughout the soil that would then require very expensive remediation. So I just raised that. I'm pleased to hear you're replacing that. I think it also, in my mind, it's now been 15 years, and I think I first had a discussion about keeping our Part 139 certification 3 years ago. And just at some point, maybe we should get a presentation on what is it costing us in terms of extra staff, extra inspections to maintain the certification, and whether that's something, given the change in the industry, it still makes sense to do. But so there's that, but also the PFAS. I appreciate that. And the sooner the better, because if we have a fire, we're going to end up with PFAS, which is already, we're doing a remediation there. And I think we spent what, $300,000 just removing soil, which someday now we're going to have to remediate. So
Yeah, sounds like another agenda item in the future.
Yeah, I like that. Well, I'd like to
just-
also
but yes.
bring that back that what it would cost also to start it back up again, you know?
Yeah, I was just to say that just a couple comments, data does matter. So as much as there might be other things around the data, if we're showing one household and we've got the certain noise complaints, I think we need to be very cautious about speculating beyond the data. And just be cautious about that in terms of we have data, we show things coming from one household, then that's what we have to, believe and work with. Second, I do think that maybe there's an agenda item. I do think things are changing. I'm in touch with the aviation commercial world, with airlines and whatnot. And I think this, mobility, the eVTOL and different things like that, it's uncertain as to what the certifications will require. So I do think that it's wise to, stay in a holding pattern with some of those things. But again, I think that's appropriate for another agenda item.
Agree.
I just have, I have another question just real quick about the noise when you have a moment, but. Okay, and that is, so as we delineate the type of aircraft, and I've always kind of wondered, does that take into account, and I'm sure they're taking a look at it. We have a date and a time. We know it's flying overhead. But what I don't see is, I mean, obviously this is coming from Camarillo. That's also approximately the place that jets go over on their way to Point Mugu. Do we have a breakdown of whether the noise is aircraft inbound to Camarillo or aircraft inbound to NTD?
Yeah, I mean, Jeanette could probably speak in more detail of that. I won't say that it's 100%, but one, our communities, given where they are and when the complaints are coming, we or they usually know which it is. Again, it's not 100% by any means, but Old Town, where we get the bulk of our calls, is not calls about usually aircraft coming into Point Mugu. Now, when it gets farther out and deeper, farther east, in city of Camarillo, then sometimes there are those questions of where it is. But again, most community members or Jeanette through investigation would know. We still would log it, and it just might be outside area. And it goes to the bigger question and the things we're doing in the approach analysis that we're doing. We're not only looking at the approach into Camarillo, but how it intertwines with the approach into Point Mugu. But if there's things we can do with the Navy, DOD, and adjusting that approach higher that might have some benefits to other parts of Camarillo. So that it is not just us.
Yeah, it's definitely a holistic problem.
100%.
I just, it always, by far the loudest aircraft that go over are the Hornets that are.
Are you old Navy guys? That is
Well, right,
correct.
yeah.
That is correct. Yeah.
So I'm I'm always curious on what that breakdown is. If we have a timestamp of hey, there's something allowed right now. And again, maybe it's very targeted too on the approach path in based on where they're at. But, I've thought about calling a couple.
And I will say that the community is much more forgiving if it's a military aircraft than a civilian aircraft, period. No, hands down.
There's some interesting topics, I think, also related to the tracking of aircraft and the data. And I think we're starting to see that. I know in the aircraft community and the owners in the aircraft community that the ADSB was put forth to all of us to which we all invested in our aircraft or fleets of aircraft for safety and to help separation and those types of things. And we've seen some of these, we talk about, you raise the type of aircraft and you see programs for landing fees and noise and all of these consequences that are actually coming as punishment to the aircraft owners with noise complaints and elevation of these things. So you're seeing at a federal level discussions starting to take place in terms of restricting or getting back to the core of why we all agreed to ADSB.
Anybody else this evening? Yep.
I just wanted to briefly clarify a potential misunderstanding about the ARF trucks. When you have the PFAS or AFFF, that's a separate tank on the ARF truck. So when we dispense water onto whatever it might be, we don't have to mix it with any chemical, with any other substance. We could do just straight water. So it's not automatic. So
That's great for me to hear. I did not know that. So so were a fire to come, you could fight the fire and not release PFAS into the environment?
that is correct. We could
That's
just
great
do
to- I
straight
did not
water, and
realize
that's for the most part what we have done. Over the years, it's only been a testing. We haven't used necessarily PFAS in many situations. Every year, we have to show the FAA for the Part 139 inspection certification that we have that ability to do that. So anytime that has been dispensed has been very briefly just to show that it actually works. And that's why with the PFAS, it's come up with such a low amount at Oxnard because it's a brief spurt. And that's the only time that we had ever used it for many years. So we just use for any type of training. And that's we do. Our operations officers go out and they train on our vehicles and adjusting the turrets and shooting at different things. That's just straight water, 100% water. And you actually have to go out of your way to hit the AFFF switch to mix it. So I just wanted to just clarify that for
That's a
everybody.
great clarification. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, if there's nothing else, a motion to adjourn the meeting for this evening.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Jerry?
I just wanted to make a comment before the adjournment. I know it hasn't been recognized, but I just wanted to give recognition to the staff, specifically the community, outreach that we've been doing. Sitting on this for, a few years, it's incredible the progress that we've made as far as seeing, hearing about these reports and also, Steve points out too in a community, and I think the communication has definitely reflected as far as people understanding more about the airports and what's going on. So I just wanted to commend the staff for their efforts there and thank you very much for that.
I'll second that. And I also want to thank Barb Filkins in particular, because Barb has been a champion in bringing the pilot community and the neighborhood community together to solve problems. And it's very much appreciated.
Not yet. Is your motion still stand, Jerry?
Yeah, Michael.
All right. Could somebody second it now for me?
I'll second it now.
There we go.
Matt Johnston.
We're adjourned.